Hey there, boys and girl. Maybe there's one girl. Welcome to the 32nd episode of the Crush Cash Game series. Looks like the top left table is going to be pretty good. 3-betting the jacks for value. The small blind is going to be looks to be a fish. 69-12 over small sample size of 16 hands. Going to be a pretty weak player. If you guys haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to go ahead and just click that little button to be updated for my future videos. And also, if y'all haven't joined my email newsletter, I have 20 free videos in the video vault at enhanceyouredge.com. Feel free to check those out. Fours is pretty obvious fold. The aces. We have quads. Gonna bet small in position. C-bet is expected on this board out of pretty much my entire range, so maybe we get some floats out of position. Checking back, the queen's a decent card. It connects king 10, obviously, king queen, queen 10. Get the lightning bolts. There we go for our quads. Checking just for, just to see what he called me with. Obviously, he has to have a king or a jack. He's gonna have a decent amount of them. He may raise us with a Broadway. If he does have king 10, he may just bet out with the king 10. Ace king suited is gonna be a raise. Looking at the value across the tables, doesn't look so fabulous at the bottom left. The bottom right looks like the guy on our direct right is value heavy. That's good news. At the top right table, don't really know anything. Getting raised with the ace king on ace 6. We could chip, but it's really hard for him to have an ace. It's hard for him to have tons of value, so we opted to just call, keep in maybe some bluffs if he feels like going crazy on the turn with like some zero equity type bluffs. He's probably gonna go ahead and bet his flush draws as well, but obviously ended up with ace 10 suited, just a cooler for him. Nothing he could do. My 4-year-old could have played that hand. And played it very well, I might add. I think she's gonna be the next queen of poker. I think the 4-year-old. The 7-year-old, I don't know. We'll have to see. Jury's still out. 7-8 off, just a fold. The queen deuce off, just a fold. Hope you guys are having a good Friday, enjoying this lovely, cool fall weather before it gets ridiculously cold. I hate how cold it gets at about the end of October. It's just, ugh. Isolating the king 9 off versus the cutoff limp. At that table, the 4 seat's going to be the fish, and we can bet this board. Yeah, we can bet this board. We don't have to size super huge. We could even go 20 or 16. Don't think this type of villain's going to be like floating us out of position very weak. He's going to play pretty fit or fold. 3-bet the ace 8 on queen 5. Opted to check it back. That's interesting. I feel like we should have bet. But maybe we don't. Maybe we just felt like we wouldn't bet our queens that often. So we can check back, and our range still looks pretty strong. The plan was to bet the turn, actually, versus a bet. Considering we have all queens in our range, we have ace, queen, queen, jack. We have queen 10. We have 10s full. We have aces. We have kings. That was the assumption when I checked back. Since we have such a strong range, we can't really call 2 bets by villain. expect villain to just check and give up instead of trying to bluff us. So when he's betting, I think he's pretty value heavy. Went ahead and 4-bet the king 5. Obviously, to no avail. Not really sure what happened with the 6-7. Let's go back. We just raised pre and checked. And it looks like we're gonna win. There you can see the 4-seat. He had a flush draw, never bet it, never did anything. Gonna be playing very passively. His bets should carry a lot of weight. Which is great news because he's just going to be calling too often. We get to value town him. King 5 just to fold. Jack 10 off, just going to be a fold, 5-handed. If it's suited, then we raise. Raising a range under the gun of like probably all suited aces, a lot of suited connectors, all pocket pairs, suited broadways, and obviously the premiums. Peeling with king 9, getting 7-1. Don't think we should be squeezing there, especially versus the short stack. Short stack can likely just pile in our face, and now all of a sudden we're playing it all in with king 9 off. Hands 2 squeeze there, maybe something like 8s plus. 8s plus, ace queen plus, we can profitably get it in versus the 6-seat. Maybe ace jack suited. Ace jack off is not. Ace jack suited is close. Very close for me. Peeling with the 4-5 in a family pot. Don't expect anybody to really bluff. I think all bets are going to be pretty straightforward. If nobody bets the turn, then I really don't think anybody has an ace. Maybe we can bluff at the river. 5 ways. 5 ways bluffing would command a lot of respect. We don't get the opportunity to, but something to think about if the turn checks around and say the river is like a 6 or something. Okay, so we get a small raise on the turn by the 4-seat, which is quite interesting considering how passively he played his flush draw. The 4-seat has ace-8, 10-8, or 8s pretty much all day. Maybe he even checked back a set of 4s. Okay, he has 8-4. But value pretty much all day from the 4-seat, like we expect. Excuse me. He opted not to value bet his 2-pair on the river, which means that had the 6-seat connected with his flush, he needs to be betting the river, leading the river 100%. He can never check and hope that the 4-seat goes ahead and bets, because I think the 4-seat is going to be checking back, maybe even sets if the flush card comes. And if he does hit the flush with a card that pairs the board, I think the river becomes a check fold against that particular player. I know it seems super nitty, but realistically, what is he raising the turn with, continuing to bet on the river when the flush comes in? He can only have a full house. Because he's not raising the turn with his flush draws. I know it's pretty annoying drawing to a flush and getting there and check folding, but you really have to understand the range that you're playing against, and the 4 seats range is just full of full houses once the board pairs. So we defend the trays after raising under the gun. I think the 6 seats got a pretty strong range. He's going to be he's not going to be 3-betting our under the gun that often. He's going to be full of premium hands, which was why we peeled in the first place. You can make an argument for just folding, but I like set mining in situations where I'm just pretty sure we're up against a super strong range and have great implied odds. The ace queen versus jacks. Looks like jacks flatted, and what happened? Let me see. Just relook at this hand. Button raises. Big blind 3-bets big. We got a snap 4-bet and a call. One-fourth size pot bet and a jam, I assume, from the 3 seed and a flat. So the 3 seed opted to jam. With ace queen, I can't imagine him getting called. I can't imagine him really getting called by worse, but he does beat some jacks and tens. He can't. I mean, I get obviously he can get called by worse because he got called by jacks, but interesting hand all around. So the jack 7, blind versus blind. The problem with the buttons play in that hand with the jacks is like he's not inducing any ships from any worse hands. With his small bet, his equity is not likely to be there when he bets small and it gets piled on him, even though it's a 4-bet pot and he did bet small. Jacks is probably just the bet fold there. I opted not to value bet my jack 7, thinking we could get some bets out of busted draws, but that 7 actually gives him a lot of pairs, gives him some hands that picked up showdown equity that aren't going to bet. As it was, he had the old king 9 off, so our play was right. Check to induce. He just wouldn't allow himself to be induced. Stealing jack 9, I think the small blind is not going to be 3-betting us very light. If the small blind were to 3-bet us, we would just fold the jack 9. If the 1 seat would have squeezed, we would have 4-bet the 1 seat. He's a new player, and from my experience, guys can be fairly squeezy early on. Ace 4-5, not really gonna just fire an air ball. We would be firing like our 6-7s, maybe pocket trays, maybe pocket deuces, 4x of spades, flush draws, and our ace 5s, ace 4s, aces 5s, and 4s. And obviously ace king, ace queen, ace jack. 8 tray suited, going to be a peel in position versus a min raise. We can also 3-bet it. Gonna give him a little float. Gonna be betting with the 8 tray. If he does opt to peel, we just go ahead and bet. Gonna isolate with the tens versus the all-in. If the 1 seat 4 bets, then we just fold. Flatting is pretty strong, actually. But we are gonna fire, expecting him to maybe flat ace queens and hands of that nature. Let's see how this ace tray hand, ace 9 hand happened. We isolate the limper with ace 9, and we end up flopping middle pair. So this is a interesting board because there are lots of draws. Button villain can't have king, queen, king, jack, king 10. I still think it's a bet though. Hopefully fold out the button and get the 4 seat to call. The 4 seat is going to call with all their draws. They're also going to call with their king X's. Turn makes it a pretty obvious bet. Hope to get called by the 4 seat, who maybe checked the king twice, which he's very capable of doing, and also capable of checking all of his draws, check calling them as well. Raise is very, very strong from the 4 seat. I don't know if we can just get it in. I guess we kind of have to on this board. He's not raising a draw, though. He's never raising a draw. The 6 seat is betting all of his draws on the flop, so we don't really have to be concerned that much. We bluff. It's very... So if we call 44, there's 258, 1 bet left. We can get some action-killing cards on the river. I think we just gotta go ahead and pile. I'm not sure whether I pile or flat, but we need to just get it in here. He's gonna have a good amount of 9X's. Come on, Brad, get it in. Ugh, I'm opting. Yeah, I should have gotten it in. Luckily, no action-killing card on the river, so... Should have gotten it in. Little too nitty there, even though it is somewhat scary by the 4 seat because they are so passive and tight. We left about $130 on the table there. Also left ourselves open for all of his 9s to get off the hook with the flush card coming in on the river. And actually, if the flush card comes in the river and the 4 seat bets, we can actually just go ahead and fold. Could have defended the king jack. Villain is very nitty, not stealing a ton. Think he's going to have a pretty strong range. I would have liked to have 3-bet the king jack actually instead of folding it. I think 3-betting is better. Whoa. What just happened with the Mr. 9-10 suited? So villain just flatted the 3-bet cold and then called all in basically with 9-10 suited. And was doing quite well against 2 ace kings. opting to limp call the deuces. I really am not such a fan of how passive I've been in the last like 3 minutes of this session. We should have limp raised the deuces. Now we're thinking about check raising the deuces, and we're ultimately going to fold. Three-six tables breaking down to nothing. We do get a reload from the 4 seat at the bottom right, which is going to be good news for us. Should be opening super wide with the 8-9. Can chunk ace deuce into our 3-bet range, actually. The 9 tray, we are opting to 4-bet bluff. Should be get some respect. The 4 seed is 3-betting 19%. So likely very wide, buttons very wide. We take advantage of how wide they are by 4-betting the 9 tray. Just when I said I was upset about my passive play, we get the old 9 tray 4-bet. Popping some equity with the ace-queen of diamonds at the top right. Alas, couldn't realize it. Check calling the 8-9 because villain can have straight draws, flush draws in his range. Jack of clubs is a bitch. That's the 6 of clubs, the jack of clubs are not very good cards. They connect pretty much everything. One seed at the bottom left table, 3-betting on his very first hand, as short stacks are prone to do. Should defend with the ace-9, probably just calling, keeping his dominated 9s and his dominated aces, flatting with the 5s. Opting to defend on the king 6 tray with a check raise. I think it's reasonable. He's going to be betting that board a pretty decent amount. Has to work a little above 50% to be profitable. It does not work. So bet, ace peels on the river. Should we bet or should we check behind and realize our showdown equity? I think betting puts 7s, 8s, 9s in a tricky spot, and his 6s that did beat us. Going to be hard for him to call. I'd much rather. I think I like that play, going with the overbet on the river. He's going to bet his aces, so he doesn't have many aces. Even like queen 10, he may end up calling queen 10, but still, he can make some wrong folds. So looks like we're going to limp call the 7s. I think I like limp calling better than I like limp raising. Expect him to fire this board fairly regularly and fire the turn actually. So our plan is to call. The king is a card he's going to barrel. He's going to barrel it a good amount. Think the plan is to call and then call the river as well. The 10 he may not bluff because we have a fair amount of 9-10s, jack-10s potentially in our range. Villain does have a lot of draws that we do beat with the 7s on brick rivers, deuce, tray, 4, 5, 6. Little heads up action. 3-6 at the bottom left. This villain is going to be quite aggressive. 4x 3-bet with the 8-9 off. Can't really defend. Ace-10 off, I think, works perfectly reasonable as a squeeze. Can potentially get the 2-seat to fold out some, get the 3-seat to call us with a pretty wide range. Checking back the Queen-9. We are checking back the Queen-9 to bluff on the turn. We check back a lot of our Ace-X's on flop. Betting for value, but very hard for him to have a hand that doesn't bet and calls us with worse. See what he showed up with. King high. One problem with flatting the king high is, how do I get to the river with queen or jack high? Do I not bet those on earlier streets? The answer is that I do probably bet them on earlier streets. Check back the king-9 with our top pair against a guy not playing very many hands at all. Front door flush draw comes in. Backdoor flush draw misses. Marginal call on the river either way. Pot size bet is generally, feels like lots of value with the pot size bet. Yeah, folding is very reasonable. Check raising the nut flush draw. Going to be check raising probably queen jack plus in this spot against this particularly aggressive villain heads up. Queen jack plus, and then 9-10s, our 7-9s. We have flush draws for check raising as well. We could also opt to 3-bet the ace-9. Flopping a set on 5-6 ace. Think this villain is going to be c-betting this flop pretty often. Can we check raise? We can. We can check raise, get some action. We can also flat induce future bets. This villain, we got 5 hands on him, so what do we really know? His aggression factor is 0.5, but whatever that means. With ace king, ace queen, ace jack, I do think he's gonna peel. The 4 is a good card for my range, not very good for his ace jacks and ace queens. High equity flop at the top right with a queen jack. I think we can go ahead and raise this board in position, check back our bricks, continue firing away when we get there. So we got another call on the ace 5-6. Nothing we can do but just go ahead and pile it in, hope to get called by ace jack, ace queen. Ace king as well. I think ace king is very much in his range. C-betting the ace-9. Happy day. Villain does end up looking us up. with 7-9. So had a gut shot on the flop with a float, turned open-ended, and then opted to call when he made a 9 on the river. I assume he feels as if he's beating busted flush draws. King, queen, queen, jack, jack 10 of clubs, but really how many of those do we have? Checking down the sevens. That is way too thin for... actually, that is a very thin value bet of 32. But look, there we go. We got called by worse. I guess he is the player that looked us up with king high on the river, and he probably bets all his better for value, so... ambitious river bet that got called by pocket fours. Yeah, so we don't have in our range on the river hardly any hands that 7-9 beats. All of our straight draws got there. We have lots of sets, lots of two pair in our range. I mean, maybe he occasionally beats a busted flush draw, but it's very ambitious call by 7-9 to say the least. By ambitious, I mean pretty poor. So not repping very much with the ace-5, going ahead and raising it for value. Villain's going to expect us to 3-bet aces, 10s, ace-10 some percentage of the time, maybe even 5 some percentage of the time. So we do have a lot of flush draws when we raise the flop here. 10x, I would think, is going to peel. The king on the turn, not the greatest of turns, not the worst. I am opting to check back to get value on the river when the flush breaks off. I can't really bet the 10. Actually, now that I think about it, I do have some 10x's in my range. I have 10x of diamonds, and this is why I ended up making this bet on the river. And I specifically remember this hand because it's pretty interesting to me. Villain bets ace king. Villain bets kings full. Villain bets his 10x of diamonds on this river. We have the 10x of diamonds in our range. We basically have to be overbetting here with a stone cold bluff on taking a raise flop check bet line, not thinking that he's going to be folding a ton of aces. So I do like the overbet to fold out all the chops because we chop all aces, and if we can get a fold out of some of the ace range, then that's going to be good for us. And also, if we do have 10x of diamonds in our range and we can overbet, get called by the aces, then that's going to be good for us. So overall, really like the overbet on the river, whether it gets called or not. I think we're in a pretty profitable spot. Villain does call with the ace-x. So when we have the 10x of diamonds in our range there, we're going to get max value. Whatever. Alright guys, well this video is wrapping up. Thank you guys so much for watching me as always. Have a great weekend and get some of that value. Adios.